All right. Hello, class. So because there was some confusion about question 7 on home on chapter 3, question 7, me and Justin decided to make a video and kind of explain it better to you guys how to solve this. So first of all, you have to note that they tell you, they kind of give you this graph, and obviously it's going to be different numbers, maybe even different country names, but the principles are going to be the same, the ones that we're teaching you now. So note that here the x-axis is kind of like the opposite way. So that's why the demand doesn't slope downwards like it usually does. So if you just basically imagine this portion, that's kind of the normal demand and supply. And here it's the opposite. So that's why demand curve is here and the supply curve is here. But so if you would imagine just flipping it, it would be the correct way. So don't let that disturb you, but I just wanted to note that before. So they first ask you for the equilibrium price of Glauco. So here, the equilibrium price from principles, we know that demand and supply intersect. Where they intersect, we have the quantity, the equilibrium quantity and the equilibrium price here. You can see it's 16, and it's obviously in thousands, it says, so it's 16,000. And for Bolivia, it's the same. You go where demand and supply meet. So they're both at 4, and here the price would be 8, so 8,000. Then it asks you who has the comparative advantage. And because Bolivia is able to produce these 4 units, for cost that's less, so the price is less, so then Bolivia has a comparative advantage. And then the first question, you have this long like graph. I kind of asked you with trade. Before I show you guys the answer, I want you to note that they kind of give you these little dots here, and they're important because the answers can only be one of those two prices. So they kind of make life easy for you and kind of give you these dots. So if I were you, I would just like kind of look at these dots. So for the first question, it has to basically imports have to equal exports, but also the price needs to be the same. So that would only be with $12. And that's why here the first column would be $12. And then you kind of draw here this line on both. I kind of did that to make it simple. And look, so consumption at this equalizing price, they call it equalizing price, would be for Glauco. You go to the graph and you look at the demand, so it would be 8. So demand refers to consumption. So at $12, they would consume 8, and they would produce, go to supply, they would produce 2. The same for Bolivia. You look at price at 12, they would, demand is at 12 would be 2 and 8. So it's kind of like vice versa. Also exports, remember that only the country that has the comparative advantage will export the goods. So here it's Bolivia, and if you have a comparative advantage, you specialize and you export. So here it would be 6, and they would import 6. Yeah, that's kind of the answer to the first question. So you want here the price to match, the imports being equivalent to the exports. The question 2 is the same. It just asks you with this per unit cost of 4,000, the transportation cost. So Justin will say a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll talk just a little bit about the transportation costs. So we know that there's this $4,000 transportation cost that I believe was a per unit cost of transporting a boat between Gulaco and Bolivia. So basically, we know that Bolivia's export price is going to be its domestic production cost plus the cost of transporting one boat to Gulaco. Now, when you're doing this on the exercise, what you're going to denote is that the transportation cost is taken into consideration, and it's basically going to be the difference in price between the two countries. So if you can see on that graph right there, what country is that on the left again there, Alex? I think it's
Glaco.
Slovakia. Yeah, so
So
there basically their price is going to fall from 16,000 to 4,000, 14,000, and Bolvia's price is going to raise from 8,000 to 10,000. And as you can see, that difference in price is 4,000, and that's going to be the transportation cost. So we know at this rate that the equilibrium price or for Glauco is going to be 14,000, and for Bolvia it's going to be 10,000. And by looking at the curves, so the equivalent, excuse me, the demand price, I'm sorry, of Glauco, or not demand price, I'm sorry, the demand quantity is going to be at 6 for Glauco, and they're going to produce 3 goods. So that means that they're going to have to import 3 boats because there's an excess in demand, in quantity demanded. And on the opposite, you're going to have Bolvia, and they're going to export 3 boats. So as you can see, they're going to produce 6 boats, and their demand is going to be 3. So 6 minus 3, that's going to be 3 as well. So that means that they're going to export 3 boats. And if we go down all the way to the bottom, we can kind of see what the difference between the transportation costs. So without the transportation costs and with the transportation costs. So Alex kind of has that mapped out right there.
Yeah.
And so in this case, we know that Glauco is going to be the high cost importing country and Bolvia is going to be the low cost importing country. So Bolvia, in essence, is going to produce less. So they're going to produce 6 boats instead of 8 boats. They're going to consume more. I'm sorry about that. 3 boats instead of 2, and export less. So 3 boats instead of 6. While Galacco, on the other hand, will produce more. They're going to produce 3 boats instead of 2, and they're going to consume less. So they're going to consume 6 instead of 8, and also import less, 3 boats instead of 6. So that's basically, in essence, Bolvia will produce less, consume more, and export less, and Glauco will produce more and consume less and import less. So that's
Yeah,
kind of the
yeah,
basic.
and just I wanted to tell you guys again, it doesn't matter which like question you have, these graphs might look slightly different. These kind of like little dots kind of help you. So just remember, for like the first one without the transportation costs, it should be the price where both of them are equal. In our case, it was 12, if you remember correctly. It was here this $12, and then for the other 2 that's left is the transportation cost one. So just take those as a given, and this question shouldn't be too hard. And then for the last one, maybe just do like me here, do a little table and map out the difference. And then this multiple choice at the end shouldn't be an issue. So I hope that was clear. And if you guys have any questions, just email me or Justin. Our emails are on the syllabus, and we'd be happy to help.